Captain Sarah Chen gripped the armrests of her command chair as the UES Defiance shuddered through hyperspace. The bridge crew worked silently around her, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of their displays. They had been traveling for 3 days now, heading toward the outer rim colonies when the distress signal reached them. The signal itself was strange. It wasn't human in origin. That much was clear from the alien frequency patterns and the odd harmonic undertones. What made it stranger was that it had been broadcasting for over 2 weeks, according to their communications officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Most distress calls went silent within hours, either because help arrived or because there was no one left to send them. "Captain," Rodriguez called from his station, "I'm still picking up that signal. It's getting stronger as we approach the Kepler 442 system." Sarah nodded, studying the star charts on her personal display. Kepler 442 was supposed to be uninhabited, just another system with a few rocky planets that hadn't been worth colonizing yet. The fact that someone was out there sending distress calls raised a lot of questions. "Any luck translating the message?" she asked. Rodriguez shook his head. "The AI is working on it, but whatever language this is, it's not in our databases. The mathematical portions are clear enough, though. Coordinates, what looks like casualty numbers, and something that might be a countdown." A countdown. Sarah didn't like the sound of that. She turned to her tactical officer, Commander Marcus Webb. The big man was studying his sensors with a frown that made his scarred face look even more intimidating. "What are your sensors telling you, Marcus?" "That's the problem, Captain. The system looks empty from here, but we're still too far out to get detailed scans. Whatever's sending that signal, it's either very small or very well hidden." Sarah made her decision. The Defiance was a heavy cruiser, built for both exploration and combat. Her crew of 200 were among the best the United Earth Space Navy had to offer, and they had standing orders to investigate any signs of intelligent life. "Even if that life wasn't human, take us into the system but keep us at yellow alert," she ordered. "I want continuous scans and full spectrum analysis of that signal. If someone's in trouble out there, we're going to help them." The hyperspace engines cycled down as they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Immediately, the bridge erupted in activity as sensors came online and began their sweeps. "Contact," Webb called out. "I'm reading debris in orbit around the 4th planet, lots of it. And Captain, some of those pieces are huge." The main screen flickered to life, showing a distant view of a blue-green world surrounded by a cloud of metallic fragments. Even at this distance, Sarah could see that whatever had happened here, it had been violent. The debris field was massive, stretching across thousands of kilometers of space. "Any signs of life?" she asked. "Scanning now," Webb replied, his fingers dancing across his console. "I'm picking up energy signatures from the planet's surface, and there are several large objects in the debris field that still show power readings." Rodriguez suddenly straightened in his chair. "Captain, the distress signal is definitely coming from the planet's surface, and I'm getting something else. Multiple signals, actually. They're all broadcasting on the same frequency, but from different locations." Sarah felt her chest tighten. Multiple signals meant multiple survivors, but it also meant multiple sites that were in danger. She studied the tactical display, noting the positions of the energy signatures Webb had detected. "Commander Harrison," she called to her science officer, "what can you tell me about that planet?" The young woman consulted her instruments. Earth-like atmosphere, slightly higher gravity. "The climate readings suggest it's habitable for humans, but that's not what's interesting. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy discharges in the planet's upper atmosphere. Something is actively attacking the surface." As if summoned by her words, the long-range sensors detected a flash of brilliant light from the planet's night side. The energy signature was enormous, like a nuclear explosion, but with characteristics that didn't match any human weapon. "Ma'am," Webb said quietly, "I'm reading multiple large objects in high orbit around the planet. They're not showing up clearly on sensors, but they're there. And they're the source of those energy discharges." Sarah's mind raced. An unknown alien species under attack by another unknown alien species. And somehow the Defiance had stumbled into the middle of it. Standard protocol said they should observe from a distance and report back to Earth Command. But standard protocols didn't account for active distress calls that had been broadcasting for weeks. She thought about the countdown Rodriguez had mentioned. How much time did the survivors have left? "Take us in closer," she ordered. "Battle stations. I want full tactical analysis of those attacking ships. and I want options for helping the survivors on the surface. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, as the yellow alert klaxons were replaced by the red strobes of battle stations. The Defiance's weapon systems came online and her shields powered up to full strength. "Captain," Rodriguez said, "I'm getting a clearer picture of the distress signals now. The AI has managed a partial translation. The beings on the surface are calling themselves the Zilani. They're asking for help and they're saying that their shepherds have been destroyed." Sarah raised an eyebrow.
"Shepherds?"
"Best translation the AI can manage. Could mean protectors, guardians, or maybe they're military." Webb looked up from his tactical display. "Captain, I've got a better read on those attacking ships. There are 12 of them, each one about the size of a battleship. They're using some kind of energy weapon that I've never seen before, and they're systematically targeting population centers on the planet below." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. They weren't just witnessing a battle. They were watching a genocide in progress. The attackers were methodically destroying an entire civilization, and the Zilani's calls for help were growing more desperate by the hour. "How long until we're in weapons range?" she asked. 30 minutes at current speed, Webb replied. 30 minutes. Sarah looked around her bridge, seeing the determination in her crew's faces. They all knew what she was thinking. The Defiance was just one ship against 12 alien battleships with unknown capabilities. By every logical measure, they should turn around and call for reinforcements. But there might not be time for reinforcements. And Sarah Chen had not joined the Space Navy to watch civilizations die while she waited for backup. "Signal the engine room," she said. "I want everything they can give me. We're going in." The Defiance cut through space like a blade, her engines pushed to maximum output as she raced toward the embattled planet. Captain Chen stood behind Webb's tactical station, watching the enemy ships grow larger on the display. Each of the 12 vessels was roughly twice the size of her heavy cruiser, their hulls a dark metallic color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Captain," Commander Harrison called from the science station, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from those ships. Their hulls appear to be composed of a material I've never seen before, and their energy signatures are off the charts." "What about their weapons?" Sarah asked. Webb highlighted one of the enemy vessels on the tactical display. "They're using focused plasma beams, but the power output is incredible. Each shot is equivalent to a direct hit from our main guns, but they can fire continuously without any apparent cooling period." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. The Defiance carried railguns and nuclear torpedoes, weapons designed to fight other human ships. Against technology this advanced, they might as well be throwing rocks. "Any word from the surface?" she asked Rodriguez. The communications officer nodded grimly. "The translations are getting clearer as we get closer. The Zilani are reporting massive casualties. They've lost most of their major cities, and their defensive installations have been completely destroyed. Captain, they're not warriors. From what I can gather, they're a peaceful species that relied on another race for protection." "The shepherds," Sarah murmured. "Yes, ma'am. And according to their messages, the shepherds were completely wiped out in the first attack. The Zilani are defenseless." Through the bridge's main viewport, Sarah could see flashes of light on the planet's surface as the enemy ships continued their bombardment. Each flash represented thousands of lives lost, an entire civilization being systematically erased. "Captain," Webb said quietly, "we're approaching weapons range. I have targeting solutions on all 12 enemy vessels, but our chances of survival against those odds are essentially 0. Sarah looked around her bridge. Every face showed the same mixture of fear and determination. They all knew the tactical situation was hopeless, but they also knew they couldn't just watch a genocide unfold. "Open a channel to all hands," she ordered. Rodriguez nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah took a deep breath. "This is the captain speaking. In 30 seconds, we're going to engage 12 enemy battleships in defense of an alien species that's being slaughtered. Our odds aren't good, but sometimes doing what's right matters more than doing what's safe. Every one of you volunteered to serve on this ship, and every one of you swore an oath to protect the innocent. Today we honor that oath. All hands prepare for combat." She closed the channel and turned to Webb. "Target the lead ship. Full spread of nuclear torpedoes followed by concentrated railgun fire." "Aye, Captain." Torpedoes armed and ready. The enemy ships had noticed them now. Sarah could see their formations shifting, with several vessels breaking off from the bombardment to intercept the approaching human cruiser. Energy readings spiked across the board as the alien ships powered up their weapons. "They're turning to engage us," Webb reported. I'm reading massive energy buildup in their forward weapon arrays. Fire torpedoes, Sarah ordered. The Defiance shuddered as 6 nuclear torpedoes shot from her forward tubes. Racing toward the lead enemy ship at tremendous speed, Sarah watched the tactical display, counting down the seconds until impact. The enemy ship's point defense systems opened fire, streams of energy lancing out to intercept the incoming missiles. 5 of the 6 torpedoes were destroyed before they could reach their target, but the 6th slipped through the defensive net and detonated against the alien vessel's hull. The nuclear explosion bloomed like a miniature star, and for a moment Sarah felt a surge of hope. Then the light faded, and the enemy ship emerged completely undamaged. No effect, Webb reported unnecessarily. Their hull absorbed the entire blast. The alien ships opened fire in return, their plasma beams reaching across space faster than thought. The Defiance's shields flared as the first volley struck, energy readings dropping rapidly across the board. Shields down to 60%, Webb called out as the ship shook around them. Sarah gripped her command chair as another volley hammered their defenses. The aliens were toying with them, she realized. They could have destroyed the Defiance with their first salvo, but instead, they were slowly overwhelming her shields, probably wanting to capture the ship intact. Return fire with railguns, she ordered. The Defiance's main weapons opened up, sending streams of hypersonic projectiles toward the nearest enemy ship. The tungsten slug struck the alien hull and simply bounced off, leaving no visible damage. Captain, Harrison called out, I'm detecting something strange. The enemy ships are scanning us, but not with conventional sensors. It's almost like they're trying to analyze our biological signatures. Before Sarah could respond, Rodriguez suddenly straightened in his chair. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's from the alien ships, and it's in perfect English. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the engines and the occasional warning beep from damaged systems. Put it through, Sarah ordered. A voice filled the bridge, cold and mechanical but unmistakably speaking human words. Vessel of the bipedal carbon-based life forms. You are defending prey species designated for harvesting. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Sarah stepped forward, her hands clenched into fists. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Defiance. The beings on that planet are under our protection. Cease your attack immediately. There was a pause, then what might have been laughter. Earth humans. We have studied your species through captured transmissions. You are classified as Deathworld inhabitants. Impressive for primitives, but irrelevant. You have 30 seconds to withdraw. Sarah looked at Webb, who shook his head. The shields were down to 40% and another concentrated volley would finish them, but the alternative was abandoning the Zelani to their fate. All remaining torpedoes, she ordered. Target spread across as many ships as possible. If we're going down, we're taking some of them with us. Webb's hands flew over his controls. Torpedoes armed and ready. Captain, this is our last chance to withdraw. Sarah thought about the desperate messages from the planet below, about families hiding in ruins while death rained from the sky. She thought about the oath she'd taken, about the responsibility that came with wearing the uniform of the United Earth Space Navy. Fire everything, she said. The Defiance emptied her torpedo tubes in one massive salvo, 24 nuclear warheads racing toward the enemy formation. At the same time, her railguns opened up at maximum rate of fire, filling space with hypersonic projectiles. The enemy ships responded with contemptuous ease, their point defenses destroying most of the torpedoes and deflecting the railgun slugs. But in their arrogance, they had underestimated human determination. 3 torpedoes slipped through the defensive net, detonating simultaneously against the hull of a single enemy vessel. This time, the combined explosion actually seemed to affect the alien ship. Its energy readings fluctuated, and for a moment its forward momentum slowed. Then the enemy fleet opened fire with everything they had, and the universe turned white around the Defiance. The emergency lighting cast everything in red as Captain Chen pulled herself up from the deck, where the last impact had thrown her. Smoke filled the bridge, and sparks cascaded from damaged control panels. The Defiance was dying around them, but somehow they were still alive. Damage report, she called out, her voice hoarse from the acrid smoke. Webb's console was partially destroyed, but he was still at his post, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Shields are gone. Main engines are offline. We've lost primary power to decks 7 through 12. Hull breaches on multiple levels. How are we still here? Sarah asked, genuinely confused. The enemy's final volley should have vaporized them completely. Harrison looked up from her science station, her face pale with shock. "Captain, they stopped firing. All enemy ships have ceased their attack and are moving away from us." Sarah limped to the main display, which flickered with static, but still functioned. The tactical view showed the 12 alien vessels pulling back, moving into a defensive formation around the planet. The Defiance drifted helplessly in space, severely damaged but inexplicably intact. Why would they stop? She wondered aloud. Rodriguez was working frantically at his damaged communications console. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple hyperspace signatures. Something big is coming." The space around them began to distort, reality bending as massive objects dropped out of hyperspace. Sarah counted them as they appeared. 50, 100, 200 ships. The newcomers were unlike anything she had ever seen, their hulls gleaming silver and covered in organic-looking curves that reminded her more of sea creatures than spacecraft. "My God," Harrison whispered. "Captain, those ships are enormous. The smallest ones are larger than our heaviest battleships." The alien fleet that had been attacking the planet suddenly seemed insignificant by comparison. The dark ships that had seemed so invincible moments before now appeared tiny and fragile next to the newcomers. "Captain," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm receiving a transmission from the new fleet. It's in the same language as the distress calls from the planet." "The Zilani?" Sarah asked. "No, ma'am. Someone else. The translation is coming through now." A new voice filled the bridge, deeper and more resonant than the mechanical tones of their attackers. When it spoke in English, the words carried an authority that made everyone on the bridge stand straighter. "Human vessel, this is Fleet Commander Torvin of the Kythera Dominion. We have monitored your defense of our client species. You have shown great courage in the face of overwhelming odds." Sarah stepped toward the communication station. "This is Captain Chen. Are you here to help the Zilani?" "We are here to fulfill our obligations," the voice replied. "The Zilani are under our protection, as were their previous guardians, the Althari. The Devourers thought the Althari extinction would leave the Zilani defenseless. They were incorrect. On the tactical display, the newcomer fleet was moving with purpose. The massive ships spread out in a complex formation, surrounding both the planet and the smaller dark vessels. Sarah watched in fascination as the formation seemed to flow like water, each ship moving in perfect coordination with its neighbors. "Captain," Webb said, his tactical systems partially restored. "The enemy ships are trying to flee. They're powering up their hyperspace drives." The response from the Kythera fleet was swift and decisive. Beams of golden energy lanced out from dozens of ships, not at the fleeing vessels, but at the space around them. Where the beams intersected, space itself seemed to solidify, creating barriers that the dark ships crashed against helplessly. "Hyperspace interdiction," Harrison breathed. "They're trapping them in normal space." What followed was less a battle than an execution. The Kythera ships moved with mechanical precision, their weapons carving through the dark hulls that had shrugged off nuclear explosions like paper. Within minutes, 11 of the 12 enemy vessels had been reduced to debris. The surviving ship, the one that had been damaged by the Defiance's final torpedo spread, was left drifting powerless. Several Kythera vessels surrounded it, their weapons trained on its hull but not firing. "Why are they keeping one alive?" Sarah asked. Commander Torvin's voice answered her question. "Information extraction. The Devourers will provide intelligence on their fleet positions and planned attacks. Then they will be eliminated." Sarah felt a chill at the casual way the alien spoke of torture and execution. These Kythera might be helping the Zilani, but they were clearly not peaceful by nature. "Captain Chen," Torvin continued, "your actions today have been noted by the Dominion Council. It is rare to find a species willing to sacrifice themselves for beings they have never met." "We couldn't just watch a genocide," Sarah replied. "Any decent person would have done the same." There was a long pause before Torvin responded. "You are incorrect, Captain. Most species would have fled rather than face certain death. Your kind appears to possess an unusual relationship with self-preservation." Webb managed a weak smile despite his injuries. "He doesn't know the half of it." "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "I'm getting a transmission from the planet. The Zilani are asking permission to speak with us directly." Sarah nodded. "Put them through." The voice that came through the speakers was different from both the mechanical Devourers and the authoritative Kythera. It was musical, almost singing, filled with emotion that needed no translation. "Brave humans of the ship Defiance, the voice said. "We have no words sufficient to express our gratitude. You face death to protect strangers. Such courage is beyond our understanding, but not beyond our appreciation." "You don't need to thank us," Sarah said. "We did what anyone would do." "No," the Zilani voice replied gently. "We have studied the records of many species. Few would have acted as you did. Fewer still would have continued fighting when victory was impossible." Commander Torvin's voice cut into the conversation. "Captain Chen, the Dominion Council wishes to meet with representatives of your species. Your actions today have elevated humanity's status in our database." "Status?" Sarah asked. "Previously, your species was classified as primitive but promising. That classification has been updated to potentially valuable allies. The distinction will affect how the Dominion responds to future human expansion." Sarah looked around her damaged bridge, at her injured crew, at the wreckage that had once been a state-of-the-art warship. They had accomplished nothing but getting themselves nearly killed, yet somehow they had changed humanity's standing with an advanced alien civilization. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, Captain, you go home," Torvin replied. "Kethra engineers will repair your vessel and escort you to the edge of human space. The Zilani have prepared messages of gratitude that your leaders will find interesting, and the Dominion Council will be in contact when they are ready to discuss a formal alliance." "Alliance?" Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "Your species fights like cornered animals, but with the courage of heroes. The Dominion has need of such warriors. The galaxy is vast, Captain Chen, and not all who inhabit it are as peaceful as the Zilani." As if to emphasize his point, the surviving Devourer ship suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The interrogation was apparently complete. "Rest now, humans," Torvin said. "You have earned the gratitude of 2 civilizations today. Such debts are not easily repaid." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in relative quiet. Sarah sank into her command chair, finally allowing exhaustion to overwhelm her. They had survived the impossible, but more than that, they had somehow opened a door to a larger universe. She just hoped humanity was ready for what lay beyond that door. 3 days later, Captain Chen stood in the Defiance's main hangar bay, watching as a group of Kithara engineers finished installing new components into her ship's hull. The repairs had been remarkable to witness. The alien technology seemed to flow like liquid metal, filling hull breaches and rebuilding damaged systems with an efficiency that made human engineering look primitive by comparison. "Captain," Commander Webb called from behind her, "the delegation from the planet has arrived." Sarah turned to see a group of beings unlike anything she had imagined entering the hangar. The Zilani were tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Their faces were vaguely humanoid, but with large, expressive eyes that held an intelligence that was both ancient and gentle. The leader of the group approached her with movements that seemed more like dancing than walking. When it spoke, its voice carried the same musical quality they had heard over the communication system. "Captain Chen," it said, "I am Keeper Silent of the Eastern Reaches. I speak for all Zilani when I say that your actions have saved not just our lives, but our entire species." Sarah felt uncomfortable with such praise. "We did what we had to do. I'm just sorry we couldn't have arrived sooner." Silan's large eyes showed what might have been surprise. "You apologize for not acting quickly enough?" "Captain, our planet is 12 days from the nearest human colony. You responded to our distress call faster than physically possible according to your own technology." "We were already in the area," Sarah explained. "It was just luck." "Luck," Silan repeated the word as if tasting it. "Perhaps, or perhaps something greater guided you to us in our darkest hour." The Zilani delegation spread out through the hangar, examining the Defiance with obvious curiosity. Sarah noticed they moved with great care, as if afraid of damaging something. Everything about them spoke of a peaceful nature that made humanity seem brutish by comparison. "Keeper Silan," Sarah said, "can you tell me about the Devourers? Why were they attacking your world?" Silan's luminous skin dimmed noticeably. "They are an ancient evil, Captain. They travel from system to system, consuming entire civilizations, not just killing them but harvesting their life force for some terrible purpose. The Althari protected us from them for 3,000 years, but the Devourers found a way to poison our guardians." "Poison them how?" "With ideology," Silan replied sadly. "They convinced a faction of the Althari that protecting lesser species was beneath them. Civil war followed, and in the end both sides were destroyed. The Devourers waited until the last Althari ship fell silent, then came for us. Sarah felt a chill at the implications. How many species have they destroyed? Countless, Silan said. The Kithara estimate that the Devourers have consumed over 200 civilizations in the past millennium alone. They would have made our species number 201 if not for your intervention. Webb joined them, having overheard the conversation. What I don't understand is why the Kithara didn't arrive sooner. If the Zilani were under their protection, Silan's expression grew complex. The Dominion is vast, Commander Webb, spanning hundreds of star systems. They cannot be everywhere at once. When the Althari fell, it took time for word to reach the Kythera fleets. Time we did not have. Until we bought you some, Sarah murmured. Exactly, Silan said. Your sacrifice gave the Kithera the time they needed to organize a response. Without that delay, our world would be empty now, another dead system in the Devourer's wake. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Torvin himself. The Kithera leader was even more impressive in person than his voice had suggested. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, his form was humanoid but clearly adapted for a high-gravity world. His skin had a metallic sheen, and his eyes glowed with an inner fire that spoke of enhanced senses. Captain Chen, he said, his voice carrying easily across the hangar. The repairs to your vessel are complete. We have also taken the liberty of upgrading several of your systems. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Upgrades? Your weapons proved ineffective against Devourer hull material, Torvin explained. We have installed plasma lance arrays based on Kithera technology. Your shields have been reinforced with gravitational deflectors, and your engines now incorporate quantum tunneling drives that will triple your maximum speed. Webb looked like he was about to faint. Sir, that's incredibly generous, but we can't accept technology that advanced. Our government would never approve. Torvin's expression might have been amusement. Commander, your government will approve whatever keeps humanity alive long enough to become useful allies. The galaxy is not a safe place, and the Devourers are not the worst threat you will face. Worse than species that consume entire civilizations? Sarah asked. Much worse, Torvin replied grimly. The Devourers are at least predictable. They consume and move on. There are other things in the dark between stars that are far more creative in their malevolence. Keeper Silan moved closer to the group. Captain, there is something you should know. The Devourers did not find our world by chance. They were following your ship's hyperspace signature. Sarah felt her blood freeze. What? Their interrogation of your species' communication networks revealed the location of your colonies, Torvin explained. They were using the Zilani as bait, hoping to lure human ships into their trap. Your response was exactly what they expected, but not what they were prepared for, Silan added quickly. They expected humans to flee when faced with overwhelming odds. Your willingness to fight a hopeless battle confused them enough to delay their assault. That confusion saved both our species. Webb shook his head in disbelief. So they were planning to attack human space all along? The Devourers consume in a pattern, Torvin said. They identify promising species and test their resolve. Weak species are consumed immediately. Strong species are studied, their weaknesses cataloged before the main assault begins. Today's battle was meant to be a test of human military capability. What conclusions will they draw? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Torvin's glowing eyes seemed to look right through her. That humanity is dangerously unpredictable. That your species will sacrifice valuable military assets to protect strangers. That human tactical doctrine prioritizes honor over survival. Is that bad? For the Devourers, yes. They do not understand species that fight without hope of victory. It makes their calculations unreliable. Torvin paused. For the Kithera Dominion, however, it makes humanity invaluable. Silan stepped forward, offering Sarah a small crystalline device. This contains the complete record of our species' knowledge freely given. Mathematics, science, art, philosophy, everything we have learned in 10,000 years of civilization. Sarah accepted the device with trembling hands. Keeper, this is too valuable a gift. No gift could match what you have given us, Silan replied. Our children will live to see the stars because of your courage. But more than that, you have shown the galaxy that there are still species willing to stand against the darkness. Torvin nodded approvingly. Word of today's battle will spread. Other species will learn that humans can be counted on to honor their commitments even unto death. Such reputation has value beyond measure. Commander, Sarah said to Webb. "How long until we can depart?" "The ship is ready now, Captain. All systems are operating at 100% efficiency." Sarah looked around the hangar one last time, at the mixture of human, Kithera, and Zilani technology that now made up her ship. When they left this system, they would be carrying more than just repair upgrades. They would be carrying proof that humanity had earned its place among the stars. "Then let's go home," she said. "Earth Command is going to want a very detailed report." Admiral Patricia Hayes stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, staring out at the blue marble of Earth below. In her 40 years of military service, she had seen humanity's reach extend from their homeworld to dozens of colonies across local space. But the report sitting on her desk changed everything. "Computer, display the Defiance incident files again," she commanded. Holographic displays materialized around her, showing tactical readouts, alien ship specifications, and most importantly, the communication logs from Captain Chen's encounter. 3 weeks had passed since the Defiance limped back to Earth space, and the implications were still sending shockwaves through every level of government. "Admiral," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see General Morrison, head of Earth Defense Command, approaching with his usual grim expression. "David," she acknowledged. "I assume you've read the latest intelligence reports?" Morrison nodded, his face even more serious than usual. 15 more colonies have gone dark in the past 2 weeks. No distress calls, no final transmissions. Just silence. Hayes felt her stomach tighten. The pattern was becoming clear. The Devourers were moving through human space systematically, testing each world's defenses before consuming them. The Kithera had been right about the escalation. "Any word from the Zilani Knowledge Archive?" she asked. "The science teams are still working through it," Morrison replied. "Most of their mathematics is centuries ahead of ours, but we're making progress. The real breakthrough came from their historical records." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "They've documented 43 separate Devourer incursions over the past 5,000 years. Each one follows the same pattern: probe attacks, assessment of defenses, then overwhelming assault. The species that survived were the ones that could adapt their tactics faster than the Devourers could analyze them. And the species that didn't survive?" Morrison's expression darkened. "The ones that fought conventionally. The Devourers have been consuming civilizations for millennia, Admiral. They've learned to counter every standard military doctrine. The implications were terrifying. Humanity's entire military strategy was based on lessons learned from human conflicts. Against an enemy that had studied and defeated dozens of spacefaring species, conventional tactics were worse than useless." "What about the Kithera upgrades to the Defiance?" Hayes asked. "Installed on every ship in the fleet that can handle them," Morrison confirmed. "The plasma lance technology alone has tripled our offensive capability. But Admiral, even with the upgrades, we're still fighting blind. We don't know their numbers, their base locations, or their full capabilities." Hayes turned back to the window, watching the orbital traffic around Earth. Cargo ships, passenger liners, patrol vessels, all going about their business in blissful ignorance of the threat bearing down on them. "Computer, show me the latest Kithera communication," she ordered. A new display appeared, showing the translated message that had arrived just hours earlier. Commander Torvin's words were as direct as ever. "Human forces, Devourer main fleet has been located. Estimated strength 3,000 vessels. Current trajectory suggests assault on Sol system within 6 months. Kithera reinforcements en route but will not arrive in time. Recommend immediate evacuation of non-essential populations." Morrison read over her shoulder. 3,000 ships, Admiral. Our entire fleet is only 400 vessels, and that's counting every patrol boat and transport. The Kithera said something else in their message, Hayes noted, highlighting another section. They mentioned that human unpredictability was our greatest asset against the Devourers. What did they mean by that? Hayes smiled grimly. "I think I know. Computer, get me Captain Chen on priority channel." The holographic display shifted to show the bridge of the Defiance, currently on patrol near the Centauri colonies. Captain Chen appeared tired but alert, her crew working efficiently around her. "Admiral Hayes," Chen said, straightening in her command chair. "What can I do for you?" "Captain, I need you to think back to your encounter with the Devourers. What did they say about human behavior?" Chen frowned in thought. "They called us Deathworld inhabitants. Said we had an unusual relationship with self-preservation. Commander Torvin mentioned that we fight like cornered animals." "Exactly," Hayes said. "The Devourers expect logical behavior, Captain. They've studied species for millennia, learning to predict their responses. But humans don't always behave logically, do we? No, ma'am, Chen replied with a slight smile. Sometimes we do incredibly stupid things for the right reasons. Morrison was beginning to understand. You're thinking of asymmetric warfare. Hit-and-run tactics, unpredictable strike patterns. More than that, Hayes said, her mind racing with possibilities. The Devourers analyze and counter standard military doctrine. But what if we don't use standard doctrine? What if we fight like humans instead of like textbook spacefaring species? Chen leaned forward, interest lighting her eyes. What did you have in mind, Admiral? Hayes pulled up a tactical display showing the Sol system and its surrounding colonies. The Kythera data indicates the Devourers will approach through the outer system, probably using Jupiter's gravity well to mask their approach. Standard doctrine would be to meet them at the edge of the system with our main fleet. But that's exactly what they'll expect. Morrison added, catching on. Precisely. Instead, we let them in. We make them think they're facing a conventional defense, then hit them with everything humans do best. Chen's expression became predatory. Chaos, Hayes confirmed. Random attack patterns, illogical target priorities, tactics that make no sense from a strategic standpoint but create maximum confusion. Morrison was studying the tactical display. It could work. If we can keep them off balance long enough for the Kythera reinforcements to arrive. Computer, Hayes commanded. Connect me to all fleet commanders. Priority Alpha. The display expanded to show dozens of faces as ship captains across human space responded to the emergency call. Hayes recognized many of them, veterans who had served with distinction in the colony wars and pirate suppression campaigns. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we are facing an enemy that has destroyed hundreds of civilizations. They expect us to behave like every other species they've encountered. Our job is to prove them wrong. Captain Rodriguez of the heavy cruiser Indomitable spoke first. What are your orders, Admiral? Hayes took a deep breath. Forget everything you learned at the Naval Academy. Forget standard tactics, logical formation fighting, and calculated risks. We're going to fight like humans, meaning? Asked Captain Park of the battleship Prometheus. Meaning we're going to be unpredictable, irrational, and completely insane, Hayes replied. We're going to use tactics that no sane military commander would ever consider, because that's exactly what the Devourers won't expect. Chen was grinning now. Admiral, are you authorizing us to be creative? Captain, I'm ordering you to be creative. The survival of our species depends on how well we can confuse an enemy that thinks it understands us. The faces on the display showed a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Hayes could understand their feelings. She was asking them to abandon decades of training and trust in human ingenuity instead. One more thing, she added. The Zelani gave us something invaluable. Proof that we're not alone in the universe. There are species worth protecting. Civilizations worth preserving. Whatever happens in the coming battle, remember that we're not just fighting for humanity. We're fighting for everyone the Devourers would consume after us. Morrison stepped forward. All fleet commanders, you'll receive detailed briefings within the hour. Begin preparations for Operation Pandemonium immediately. As the communication ended, Hayes turned back to the window. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, but she knew that in 6 months that peace would be shattered forever. Think it will work? Morrison asked. Hayes smiled. David, we're about to find out just how crazy humans can be when properly motivated. Captain Sarah Chen floated in the zero-gravity command center of the mining station Prometheus base, watching the most beautiful and terrifying sight of her life unfold on the tactical displays. 3,000 Devourer ships had emerged from hyperspace, exactly where the Kythera had predicted, their dark hulls forming a perfect assault formation as they advanced toward the inner system. All units. This is Admiral Hayes, came the transmission from the command ship. Operation Pandemonium is now active. Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to survive long enough to drive them insane. Chen smiled grimly as she activated her ship's communication system. The Defiance was no longer a heavy cruiser. Over the past 5 months, human engineers had stripped away half her hull plating, mounted mining charges in every available space, and covered her remaining armor with reflective chaff dispensers. She looked more like a flying scrapyard than a warship, which was exactly the point. This is Defiance to all units, she broadcast. Mad Dog Squadron is in position. Remember, were supposed to look like desperate civilians, not military vessels. Around the solar system, similar improvisations were taking place. Cargo ships had been converted into missile platforms. Passenger liners carried nuclear mines instead of tourists. Even orbital habitats had been equipped with long-range weapons. Their civilian populations evacuated to hidden bunkers on the outer moons. The Devourer fleet advanced with mechanical precision, their formation designed to overwhelm any conventional defense. Chen watched their approach on long-range sensors, counting down the minutes until first contact. "Captain," her tactical officer Webb called out. "They're scanning the system. Energy signatures suggest they're looking for military installations." "Perfect," Chen replied. "Show them exactly what they expect to see." At her command, false signals began broadcasting from dozens of locations throughout the system. The transmissions mimicked the signatures of military bases, orbital defense platforms, and fleet staging areas. To Devourer sensors, it would look like humanity had prepared a standard defensive strategy. The response was immediate. The alien fleet split into 3 groups, each one heading toward a different concentration of false signals. Their formation was textbook perfect, designed to eliminate fixed defenses before the defenders could coordinate a response. "They're taking the bait," Admiral Hayes announced. "All units prepare for Phase 2. What happened next would have horrified any military strategist. Instead of defending their positions, the human ships abandoned them entirely. The Defiance and her squadron fled from their hiding spots like panicked civilians, broadcasting distress calls and emergency transmissions. Other ships did the same, creating the appearance of a complete rout. The Devourers pursued with cold efficiency, their weapons systematically destroying the abandoned installations. But as they advanced deeper into the system, the first surprises began. The mining station that Chen had been defending suddenly exploded, not from enemy fire, but from charges placed by the fleeing humans. The explosion sent chunks of metal and rock flying in all directions, some of them impact the pursuing Devourer ships. The damage was minimal, but the confusion was immediate. Why did the prey destroy their own installations? Came an intercepted Devourer transmission. More explosions followed as humans abandoned and destroyed everything in the aliens' path. Orbital factories, communication relays, even entire asteroids rigged with mining charges. The Devourers found themselves advancing through a system that was literally blowing itself apart around them. "Phase 3, Admiral Hayes ordered. "Chaos protocols are now active." This was where human creativity truly began to show. Captain Park of the Prometheus had disguised his battleship as a medical transport, complete with false hull markings and civilian distress beacons. When a group of Devourer ships moved to intercept what they thought was a helpless refugee vessel, Park's ship dropped its disguise and opened fire at point-blank range. The alien ships, caught completely off guard, took massive damage before they could respond. But instead of pressing his advantage, Park immediately fled again, his ship broadcasting new distress calls and begging for mercy. Similar attacks erupted throughout the system. Ships pretended to be destroyed, then reactivated their weapons when Devourer vessels came to investigate the wreckage. Supposedly civilian transports revealed hidden missile batteries. Even orbital debris turned out to be disguised mines that activated when enemy ships passed too close. "Their formation is breaking down," Webb reported from his station. "They're starting to split up, trying to track individual targets." Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Devourer fleet, which had advanced in perfect order just hours earlier, was now scattered across the system. Ships peeled off to investigate false signals, pursue phantom targets, or respond to unexpected attacks. Their overwhelming numerical advantage was being negated by simple confusion. "Captain," Webb called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer command ship. They want to negotiate." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Put them through." The familiar mechanical voice filled the bridge. "Human vessels, your tactics are irregular. We offer terms for surrender." "This is Captain Chen," she replied. "What terms?" "Cease your chaotic behavior patterns. Submit to orderly harvesting. In exchange, we will preserve 10% of your species for study purposes." Chen felt a cold rage building in her chest. "Counteroffer. Leave our system immediately, and we won't show you what humans are really capable of when we stop being polite." There was a long pause. "You cannot defeat 3,000 vessels with your primitive technology." "We're not trying to defeat you," Chen replied. "We're trying to teach you a lesson. At that moment, the real surprise began. Throughout the system, objects that the Devourers had dismissed as space junk suddenly came to life. Disabled satellites revealed hidden weapon systems. Asteroid mining platforms turned out to be disguised battleships. Even the orbital debris field around Mars was revealed to be a massive minefield. The Kythera had been right about human unpredictability. No sane species would rig their entire star system to explode, but humans weren't always sane. Incoming hyperspace signatures, Harrison called out from the science station. Multiple fleets approaching fast. Chen's heart leaped as new ships began materializing throughout the system. But these weren't Devourer reinforcements. The gleaming silver hulls of the Kythera Dominion fleet had arrived, along with vessels from a dozen other species she didn't recognize. "This is Fleet Commander Torvin," came the familiar, authoritative voice. "Apologies for our delay. We see you have begun the lesson without us." What followed was the most one-sided battle in recorded history. The Devourer fleet, already scattered and confused by human tactics, found itself surrounded by a combined force of allied species. Ships that had spent millennia consuming civilizations suddenly faced enemies who had learned from humanity's example. Zilani vessels, their hulls gleaming with borrowed human technology, attacked in seemingly random patterns that made no tactical sense. Kythera ships ignored logical targets in favor of dramatic displays that maximized psychological impact. Other species contributed their own interpretations of fighting like humans, creating a chaos that the Devourers couldn't comprehend. "Devourer command vessel is requesting permission to withdraw," Webb reported. Chen looked at Admiral Hayes' face on the communication display. The Admiral's expression was stone cold. "Denied," Hayes replied. "They came here to harvest our species. Now they get to learn what happens when you threaten a death world." The battle ended not with a surrender, but with the complete annihilation of the Devourer fleet. 3,000 ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were reduced to debris by an alliance that had learned to fight without logic, to strike without patterns, and to win through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept defeat. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and engineers began assessing the damage, Captain Chen received a private transmission from Commander Torvin. "Captain," the Kythera leader said, "the Dominion Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's application for membership." "We didn't apply for membership," Chen pointed out. "You did not need to. Your species has demonstrated that it possesses something the galaxy desperately needs: the ability to find new ways to fight impossible odds. The Council offers humanity full partnership in the Dominion, with all rights and responsibilities thereof." Chen looked around her battered bridge, at her exhausted crew, at the system full of debris that had once been humanity's greatest threat. "Commander," she said, "I think we'd be honored to accept." As the communications ended, Chen allowed herself a moment to appreciate what they had accomplished. Humanity had not just survived their first galactic war, they had changed the nature of warfare itself. The galaxy would never again assume that superior numbers guaranteed victory. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the survivors of other Devourer fleets were learning a new word: human. It was becoming synonymous with dangerously unpredictable, and Chen could think of a better reputation for her species to have. The distress call hadn't been theirs, but they had answered anyway. And in doing so, they had announced to the universe that Earth's children were ready to take their place among the stars.